What's going on, gamers? Today we're back with some more Outriders Worldslayer. What we're bringing you today is a guide for this fella right here, the Firepower Devastator build. So if you want to see that, then stay tuned. It's coming up next. Welcome back everybody. Like I said, we're going to be going over this fella's build guide today, the Firepower Devastator, and I think he's probably one of the most powerful ones in the game. There's so much you can do with this build, you can alter it to how you want, and before I do jump into it, just so you know, this is not finished. I've been grinding for 2 days in order to get better gear, try and perfect it. It's not helped in the slightest, so I thought I'd bring it out and just tell you what you can be chucking in those mod slots in order to make it even more powerful. But as always, if you enjoy this, then a like would be appreciated, and if you'd like to become a member of the channel for more gaming content, why not hit that subscribe and bell icon, or follow me over on Twitter. But for now, what I'm going to do is chuck on a little bit of gameplay, show you what he's all about, and then I'll go over the full build guide afterwards. Right, so hopefully from that you can tell whether this is the fella for you or not. Like I said, I'm just gearing him up. This is the first time I've actually properly played with a Devastator as such. I've always been a Pyro main, but he is ridiculously good. The durability is second to none. He will survive pretty much everything if you're playing properly, and just does a lot of damage as well. Now, the weapon that I've chosen over on this side, and you're going to think it's a bit odd, and that's because it is a little bit odd, but you want a submachine gun. You want a submachine gun on the standard variant, the one that's going to do the highest RPM, because you're all about doing that crit damage and getting those shots out as fast as possible. What you want on it will be armor piercing and close range damage. Now the thing is, while this gun is far from perfect, as you can see, it does actually tick a lot of the spots we're after. So armor piercing is pretty amazing, as it really helps us to get that crit damage out because of the mods we've got on our armor pieces. Healing receives quite nice, but the close range is what we're after. Fortress is absolutely ideal. If we're getting that third epoch slot, that means that the gun's much more viable, because then you can change a few things around. But this still works well. Fortress shots increase the current armor and resistance by 5%, stacking up to 3 times. At max stacks, it's going to give us 25% additional increase to our damage for 10 seconds. This is the must-have mod, I would say, on pretty much any weapon for this build. Like I said, if you can get in that apocalypse slot, it makes things a little bit easier. Secondly, we've got anomaly enhancement. This is okay-ish for the moment. At later levels, it probably won't work out very well because we've not got much anomaly going on. So receive a firepower boost equal to 40% of your anomaly power. But one that's actually a lot better than I realised is anomaly mutation. Although you may well be able to get a better weapon than this, I'll show you one in a moment, this actually works really well with this build. Shots on enemies afflicted by any status means that it's going to multiplicate into other statuses. Now the reason that's quite good is because what we've got going on with our build, because we can actually make them get a status if we just use our push or our punch or whatever our melee move is called with this character. He will inflict bleed on those enemies, meaning that then you can multiplicate it whenever you want. This is good for a number of reasons, but mainly because you're going to be able to get that vulnerable, giving you extra 15% damage on them, as well as being able to stun them a little bit with the other conditions you get on them. At endgame, however, you may be looking for something a little bit more like this. I'll have to test out the numbers to see how it works out, but this gun could be a very viable late game. However, I couldn't use it because the firepower was just too low with how it rolled. Secondly, and this is going to be your ad clearing weapon, just an absolute beast. Armor piercing, status power and close range damage on your Roaring Umbra. Roaring Umbra I find just a really fun gun to use on any Devastator build that goes around just kind of running and gunning. Kinetic Stomp, shots create a seismic shock around you, dealing a huge amount of damage in 5 meter radius with a 4-second cooldown. Pain Share works really good in this build. 30% of critical damage dealt is spread to enemies within a 6 meter radius as an anomaly blast. Again, 4-second cooldown. And finally, pretty much any kind of AoE you can chuck on works well. Shadow Comet is really good because it gives us a little bit of distance in our build. Shots cool down a comet, dealing 432,239 damage to enemies within a 3.5 meter radius with a 3-second cooldown. That was where you were seeing me run, gun, just destroy everything around myself because we've got so much AoE coming off of us and it's a lot of fun as it is. So over to our armor pieces, and we're using the Death Proof set. Very possibly the worst set for Devastator in the game previously. Now I would say this is in the kind of upper echelon. It's really good, but for a few reasons. Gives you bonus firepower, close range damage and healing received. Whatever you can get with firepower and close range damage, chuck that on. That's going to help you out no end. This one gives us Primal Weakness. Boulder Dash permanently reduces resistance of all damaged enemies by 30%, giving us a nice bit of flexibility and allowing for a little bit more damage. I've chucked Captain Hunter on because then we're able to target those tougher elites and just take them down a little bit faster, especially those bosses. And the last one, like I said, I'm still looking for these perfect rolls. This has a completely unused slot. Spike Forest, Impale, the skill can strike, it doesn't have no point going on, we're not using that in the slightest. Whatever you can chuck in there that's going to give you a nice bit of juicy damage, chuck it in and it's going to help you build out no end. Or anything that ups your armor will also help you because that will go straight over to the firepower because of our set bonus. Just over here we've got bonus firepower, close range damage and healing received again with our Death Proof chest. Dum Dum Bullets is going to give us a nice bit of extra weapon damage. We're using an assault weapon with that submachine gun. Also, Primal Armor, Boulder Dash doubles your armor when the skill ends for 5 seconds. That is actually invaluable in this build and works out really favourable. Last one, again, doesn't help us in the slightest. If I remember correctly, I've got 3 completely dead or unused slots in this, meaning you can definitely make a more powerful build than myself, but even with this, I tear through everything and I'd probably say this is one of the best ones if you just want to run and gun and not worry about anything taking you down. Next up for the waist, and we've got just an Apocalypse Purple. Anomaly Power, cooldown reduction and skills life leech. You do not really want any of them. Firepower, close range and whatever else you want to chuck on will help you massively, but this one rolled with some really nice mods, so I've chucked it on. Power of the Stones, Tremor. When the skill is active, all party members are given a 30% weapon damage bonus for 8 seconds. Now, unless my game's glitched out, I tried it with absolutely nothing on and my weapon damage was going up as well, so I believe this is all party members, including yourself. If my game's bugged out, because Outriders does do that sometimes, then instead put on the other one that gives you the extra armour and a little bit of healing. Plate Piercer, an absolute must. You have to have this on. Increase your critical damage by 40%. The bonus is equal to 50% of your armour piercing. Like I said, once you've got a slightly better gun than I've got, you'll probably be putting something on with that crit damage, which will definitely help you. Whether it be first things first, or whether it's Gravedigger, you're going to want to go for crit damage because, as you saw, we're critting whenever we want. And lastly, Primal Chain Gun, Boulder Dash. Every enemy damaged by the skill increases your weapon damage by 20% for 5 seconds. This helps you to tear through absolutely everything when you're using your AoE weapon, and then when you're not, you still get that 20% because you're using that boulder dash and you're jumping straight on that boss. Upping you 20% there and 30% above with our Power of the Stones. Next up, and to complete our set, we've got the Death Proof Gauntlets. Max health, close range damage and healing received. This came with some really nice mods. Death Store doubles your armour whenever your health drops below 35%. Believe it or not, that's doing two things with us. It's making it so that we're really durable, but at the same time it gives us a big old burst of damage. If we go really low health, this works out quite this can work out quite well into later game, because obviously it will transfer over into our firepower. Ready for anything, 5% of critical damage dealt to elites is returned to you as health. This means you can just absolutely take that boss on. The only time you have to worry about things is when you're reloading. With the perfect playstyle, once your armor's up, once your tremor's up, and playing a little bit carefully, you're pretty much invincible on that boss. The only thing, like I said, just make sure that you get those bullets back fast in order to start replenishing your health again. Kingslayer, critical hits on elites increases your firepower by a massive amount for 10 seconds. That's an absolute needed one in most firepower builds, but definitely in this one in order to get our firepower through the roof and hit those elites ridiculously hard, especially the bosses. Last but definitely not least, and this again giving us our third don't want mod slot, is Concussionless Boots. With max health, cooldown reduction and close range damage, it's definitely not ideal, but it still worked out quite well. You will be able to get better, but because it rolled with a nice third POC slot with that sharp eye, critical shots whilst aiming down sights grants you 31,440 firepower for 5 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. So we've grabbed that up. The top one, chip off the old block, not even worth reading that, not going to help you in the slightest, so it's kind of an unused slot as such. And secondly, another one that I'd say you definitely need, Damage Absorber, increases your armour by a certain amount and resistance by 10%. That gives you a nice little bit of resistance. It works hand in hand because you've got it going on with your fortress as well, you've got enough resist and you've got a nice chunky bit of armour there. Now with that, you've completed everything. You've got your set bonus, which is reduce the cooldown of boulder dash by 90% and increase firepower by 30% of your armour. I have not been able to stack into armour quite as much as I wanted to, but if you could, and if you're lucky and can get some nice rolls on these, you very well could do. Like I said, we can tear through everything with this build, and you can make it much better than I have by finding gear that's a little bit stronger. Perfect one to change over from the boots would either be a nice purple one with some firepower, or if you can't manage that, maybe a Marshal's foot gear if it's got a nice rolled POC slot. Then you'll have the rejuvenation in your second, you'll just have to swap out the first for whatever you're missing. Now what I'm going to do is show you a few mods that you may well want to look out for. So one really nice one that can help you out would be probably this one over here, Stronghold. Tremor, all allies in range of explosions receive a 20% resistance bonus and a 20% armor bonus for 5 seconds. That's going to help you out. You're going to get a nice bit of resist, you're going to get a nice bit of armor. Again, with that set bonus, it means it transfers over into firepower. Working hand in hand with that would be, as soon as I can find it, this one just here, Human Fortress. Receive a certain amount of health regeneration and a very nice bit of armor as well while the skill is active. Other than that, anything else that can help you with your damage. Whether it be arms and anomaly, if you have decided to keep that anomaly mod on your weapon, or even something like this. If you're worried about survivability in the slightest, self-medication, for example if you're using that Dark Sacrifice mod in order to get the extra damage on your weapon, but it's taking away from your health too much, self-medication, because of us being able to completely spam that boulder dash ability, means that you can have a big old chunky bit to your max health. So this works very well in this build, increasing your max health by 20% when any skill starts its cooldown, stacking up to 3 times. So going over the skills, Tremor is going to help us, like I said, if you can manage to get a bit of armor from it, that's going to work amazing, but even without that, it's going to give us the additional firepower. It creates a series of explosions around you, and it drains a little bit of health, giving you that as well. Nice bit of survivability, and a good little one to pop in order to get damage increase. Just over to here, and we've got Golem. Golem is going to be your I don't want to fall over, make sure I've got a big old chunky buff to my incoming damage. and that's at 65% for 8 seconds. You're in amongst everything, you're a Devastator, Golem's going to help you out just to stay alive. And last but definitely not least, the thing that we're pretty much building around for this is going to be Boulder Dash. Charge forward, get a little bit of damage, we're not after it for this damage whatsoever, and again when you land you get another bit of damage, but while you're in this you also get 65 bonus to incoming damage reduction, exactly the same as if you've got a Golem on. So now with these two you're very durable. Also, like I said, you can spam it over and over again and we're getting some nice buffs on it. The main one is that 100% armor increase, that again at later game is going to transfer straight over to that firepower, giving us a nice chunky bit of damage. For the class, this one's quite nice and easy. If you want to deviate you very well can. I've tried to make it so you're durable but also dish out the beats. So we're going up here, you've got 15% weapon damage, then you've got your armor pierce, close range damage for 15%. Just down here it means our kinetic skills can be used whenever we want now, even though we're just pretty much using it in order to get down to here into the fray. This one is going to give you 15% pretty much constant damage mitigation because we're using that Boulder Dash so often. Just up here we've got a little bit more armor piercing, a little bit more assault weapon damage again, and this one champion, they've just recently changed it. Whenever you use a skill you're going to get weapon damage by 45% for 10 seconds. That's actually a big old buff along with the one we're going to get later on. Bullseye, increase your critical damage by 20%. You have to pick these up whenever possible because we're going for all about those crits. Again, increase your weapon damage for 15. Just up here we're going with an assault weapon, so grab Assault Master, 20% extra damage for those weapons. Just down here we're going Brawler, increase your close range weapon damage by 15%. Increase weapon damage by 15%, and we've got a nice little bit of weapon leech going on, as well as getting us to Bounty Hunter, which increases damage against Elite by 15 and Elite deal 15% less damage to you. This, along with the fact that we've got Tremor, we've got Golem, and we've got that Boulder Dash skill, means you've got so much going on to kind of mitigate damage. Next up is Bulletstorm, reload ridiculously fast with 20% extra fast reload in there. Confrontation, enemies who damage you will have their physical damage reduced by 10% for 5 seconds. The effect is doubled if you damage that enemy as well. Exactly the same again. Bosses, only really time you've got to worry about, I'd say, is probably with their A.O.E effects going off as such. But even with that, because of what we've got going on with our weapon and the crit shots giving us extra health back every time we're critting against an elite, it means those bosses and those elites don't even give us much troubles because we're just able to get it back, because we're just able to get our health back straight away. Just down here, increase armor piercing by 10%. And very last but definitely not least, when kinetic skills end, increase your weapon damage by 70% for 10 seconds. That node is ridiculous because we have this constant 70% extra weapon damage constant because of our Boulder Dash skill and that death proof set. Jumping over to the Pax Tree, and there's only one way you can go in my eyes, that is just up to here. Grab increase weapon damage by 30% and your magazine size by 50%. Just over here, increase your damage mitigation by 5%, additionally increase damage mitigation by 2% for every enemy in close range. The only option is Harvester. Other than that, we don't really need to worry about that too much. If you did find yourself falling over and you thought it was because you weren't hitting enough elites and such, you could put this on. I have not had any issues so far. Just up here, Finishing Touch increases your weapon damage by the percentage of ammo missing from your magazine, so those last bullets are really going to hit hard, and killing shots replenish 35% of your mag. Just bopping up to the top way, we've got Armored Division. Increase your armor piercing by 20% and reduce your kinetic skills cooldown by 50% of your armor piercing value. We don't have to worry too much about that. Our Boulder Dash is 0.9 seconds or something. It'll probably be lower late game. It'll probably be lower than that late game. You can activate it whenever you want, but this is still a nice one to have because of that armor piercing going in our build. Lastly, I think you have to go this way, and it's a nightmare because I would have loved to pick this up if that was somewhere else. Against devastating odds, damaging at least 3 enemies with a kinetic skill grants you 30% armor piercing for 4 seconds. Damaging less, as in what we're doing with bosses, makes your shots critical and then last for 4 seconds. And we can have that constant because as soon as they're down, we're just going to activate our boulder dash again, and we're going to make sure that it goes straight back up. Against bosses, you have pretty much 100% uptime by just spamming that boulder dash whenever it falls off. Now lastly, like I said, I'm new to Devastator. I do not have anywhere near the amount of points I would like to put in, but you're going to want, I haven't actually all got them in the right place, apologies, you're going to want your armor piercing because that's going to help you out for your crit damage. You're going to want your close range damage. You're going to want this one just over here, your weapon damage, and then you're going to jump straight over to the prowess. With this, you're going to have your crit damage just over here, next critical damage bonus increased by 0.5, chuck 10 in there as same as all the others, 10 over to your damage against elites. If you want to put your magazine size up, that would also help you out. And lastly, you're going to jump up to your endurance, put on your armor, put on your health, then finish off with your elite mitigation, and finally your resistance. Once you have maxed all of those out, you'll be doing some crazy numbers and you'll be having a lot of fun as you go, because you'll have that A.O.E damage with your secondary, and then you'll have that single target just absolutely knocking those bosses to pieces. Well, you gamers, hopefully that's helped a few of you out. Apologies for it not being a perfect build. I've tried, but I am having no luck with drops. But even so, this will definitely get you through any of the content you want to do, and with swapping in or swapping out some mods, you'll be able to make yourself semi-invincible as long as you're shooting and such, because of how much mitigation you've got going on in your build. Absolutely amazing in a team, amazing solo, just a really nice build overall to use. As always, for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, take care. I'll see you on the next day.